Hello, it's the middle of November and we finally got some sun after what feels like 2 weeks of just grey. So it's really nice to get out and have some nice lighting in the forest. So me and a friend discovered this beastly flush of chicken of the woods. It must have been like over a month ago now, and it's still here, but it's way past it for eating. It's gone all white and mushy, so I definitely wouldn't be harvesting this to eat. But honestly, it's the biggest amount that I've ever seen. And look at this all over the floor. Absolutely huge. I've only ever found like a chicken of the woods about this size. And this is just one piece of the whole lot that was growing out of this insane beech trunk. It looks dead, but up the top there was leaves, so she's still going. I bloody love crunchy leaves. There's nothing more satisfying than that. Well, there probably is, but I just love doing this. So here's a huge beech tree that's snapped at the bottom and it's split 3 ways. So all the way over there, all the way down there, and all the way down here. And it's hosting a lovely collection of turkey tail mushrooms. So to check that you've definitely got turkey tails, pick one off and have a closer look. So they have quite tightly packed rings on the upper surface, and normally you've got a range of colours, but not necessarily. Some of these have got brown, grey, and then you've got the white edge. And then underneath you want to look what colour it is. So if it's all white and it has little pores, so little holes on the underneath, then you can be sure that you've got a turkey tail. There's turkey tail lookalikes, but they will be a different colour underneath, not white. These are golden crust or hairy curtain crust. There's 2 species that look very similar to each other. One is obviously a bit hairy on the upper surface, the other one is not hairy. But if you pick one, flip it over, you can see it's not all white on the underside, it's still the same colour as it is on the upper surface, more or less. And you won't be able to see any visible pores. So here's the underneath of a turkey tail and the underneath of a golden crust. Flip them over and they look similar, but obviously different colours. But obviously the turkey tails come in a variation of colours, so I can see why people would get them confused. You can see on this nice little cluster here a bit more variation in the colour. So you've got some greeny, grey, brown, bluey grey and darker rings on these ones. And I think most people would agree with me when I say that these are one of the more abundant medicinal species that we have in the UK, next to the birch polypore, because I find these everywhere, and you'll find them all throughout the autumn and the winter months, which is great because that's when we need their medicinal helping hand the most. I just wanted to say it's good moral practice as a forager to be mindful of how much you harvest. So whilst it's not damaging to the organism to pick the fruits, which are the mushrooms, it's still a good thing to do to leave some of the fruit bodies behind and not take them all, because obviously they're part of the ecosystem and animals and insects and whatever might be eating them too. And it's also nice to leave some for someone else who might come along. So yeah, as you can see, there's still loads left. Like, I've not even taken a quarter of what's here, but obviously I was lucky to stumble across such a big flush. They don't always show up in this many numbers, But as well, I do understand the excitement as a new forager when you find something and you just want to grab a load of it. That's fair enough, but don't do it all the time. So whilst there hasn't been any rain recently, this is the state of the amethyst deceivers at the moment. So they almost look white, but they're just very dry. So they're more like a powdery lilac colour. Some nice chunky amethyst deceivers down here. These would still be alright to eat. They're not covered in spores. You can see they're dry, but they're still good to go. My God, I just can't cope with my brain sometimes. I get the most disturbing, intrusive thoughts ever. So I was just walking along and I almost walked into a branch, and then I just instantly had this daydream of like the branch poking out my eyeball, and my eyeball's like hanging out, and then I'm trying to ring an ambulance with no signal and my eyes just hanging out, like what the fuck. Come on, who even thinks of that? It's never gonna happen. I have such quick reflexes. I wouldn't let a stick poke my eyeball out anyway. Just found this little stick with these porcelain mushrooms growing on it. So normally when you spot porcelain fungus, there'll be quite a lot of them growing along a tree branch, and they have a rather thick, sticky mucous membrane on the cap. And they are pure white, and they normally have a little stem ring. It's almost gone on this one. And they are actually edible, but I don't really know of anyone that eats them. You'd want to get rid of that sticky mucus off the top as well, because that wouldn't be very pleasant. So I've not really mentioned much before about the importance of habitat with mushrooms. Someone mentioned it in a comment a while ago, so I just thought I'd mention it now, because with a few years experience under my belt, I don't often think about it because I just know which habitats mushrooms grow in. So someone might be looking at those and think, oh, they look just like snowy waxcap mushrooms. And those, the porcelain mushrooms, are growing out of a piece of wood, whereas the snowy waxcaps are a grassland species, so they'll be growing in grass, like old unused farmland type fields. So yeah, the habitat is very important actually, because a perfectly edible species that grows out of wood could look completely similar to an inedible or toxic species that grows out of grass, for example. I don't believe I've found this one before. It's very orangey yellow, and then it's got a very velvety fluffy cap, which is interesting. I'm going to do a cross section of this because I often forget to do that, and that's helpful when you're trying to identify a bolete mushroom and many other mushrooms, but the boletes are good to do a down the middle cross section, and then you can see if there's any colours inside. Okay, so we've got no colour change, just a nice orangey marbled effect. No colours in the cap. The pores are quite a light olivey brown. I'll have a better look when I get home and I'll put it in the text. Ooh, I did do that on purpose because that is the joys of wearing wellies. Tomorrow I'm going to come out again to the same kind of area, and it's sunnier tomorrow and I'm going to get out earlier. So yeah, I'm going to combine today's footage with tomorrow's footage just to make a bit of a longer video. There's a nice little blewit down here. This is my second sighting of them this week. Of course, the hedgehogs are still going strong. And you can see the spores in there, in the moss. Is that the top of something's head? I'm not sure. I have to say I don't know bones very well. I have to say I don't recognise these guys. They look a bit like the buttercaps from the top, but actually they're quite different. They have quite a fibrous cap and a longer, skinnier stipe. It does smell quite nice though, but don't take that for meaning that it's edible, because that's not always the case. Right, so this is a beech tree and a silver birch tree, and hands down, this is like the gnarliest silver birch tree that I've ever seen. When they get old, they can really like deform and crack. But me and my friend found this tree the other week, and all the way up the top it's got birch polypores. There's some really nice ones up there, and they go all the way up the top of the tree. And I'm half convinced that this has got chaga growing on it. I've never found chaga before, but that to me is quite convincing. I know it's not really formed into much yet, but it's very black. I'm gonna see if it comes away at all. I better do this two-handed because I'm probably going to cut myself. I don't know, that hasn't really revealed much. This could just be a wound site. There's also this bit on the other side of the tree. That looks quite a lot like chaga to me, but like I said, I've not found it before, so I'm not really experienced to comment on that. Anyone else recognise this? So there was a bigger chunk on the other side, and I managed to get a couple pieces like this off. I don't know, who knows? I reckon I need to get a bit deeper, come back with a hammer and get a bigger chunk off and have a look a bit deeper, because it's a very big growth on the other side. Just clocked a nice bunch of oysters down here. Here they are, they're quite wet and soggy, and they're quite pale looking as well, so they could be Pleurotus pulmonarius, which is the summer species. However, both species of oyster can grow all year round, apparently. You've got Pleurotus austriatus, or austriatus, which is the grey oyster, which is known as the winter oyster. And then you've got the pale oyster, or the summer oyster, which is what these look like. But apparently the two species can hybridize, so you could get a mixed species of oyster mushroom. So as you can see, oyster mushrooms don't really have a stem. There's kind of a tiny bit that goes into the wood substrate that they're growing from, and the gills are decurrent all the way to the bottom, so meaning the gills just go all the way down to there. They look a bit darker on camera, but these are actually like a really light beige colour, quite warm toned. I've managed to harvest a few nice ones. These ones are like hella juicy. Oh, that just squirted on me. Just plonk them in there with my hedgehogs, and they're probably going to get covered all over by the hedgehog spines, but never mind. I'm just going to brush them off when I get home before I cook them. And all over this beech tree is loads of this black jelly fungus. Ew, it's like black licorice. Now, going by just what I've discovered before, they look a lot like black bulgur, which is Bulgaria inquinans, or inquinans. But there's another black jelly fungus, I think it's called black witch's butter, which looks just like this. Before, in another vlog, I doubted myself when I posted a video and said it was a beech tree at the end, and then I looked back and I was like, no, it's not. But actually, this beech tree has got the same markings, so this is a fallen branch, obviously, and these lines are actually going vertical up the branch. So it's obviously just a feature of aging bark, I guess. Here's a different fallen beech, and the bark on the main trunk looks a bit smoother, or at least from a distance anyway, but as you get closer it's got horizontal lines, but then also these vertical like tiger stripes. So yeah, that just makes things confusing. These down here are a ganoderma species of fungus, and they're most likely Ganoderma applanatum, which is the artist bracket, but you have got the southern bracket as well, which is quite similar looking, but generally the artist bracket is pretty smooth and flat on the top. So I've never harvested a Ganoderma before, so I've just broken off this one. There's still loads growing in there, and they are a really abundant fungus. So as more research is coming out, it's showing that all the ganoderma species have medicinal properties, and as we all know, the reishi, Ganoderma lucidum, is a very popular medicinal mushroom that's gaining popularity in the western part of the world now, but it was used in Chinese medicine for thousands of years prior to now. But the other Ganoderma species, such as this one, aren't really talked about much. But as I'm sort of delving deeper into herbal medicine studies, I'm seeing these being talked about more. Quite a few herbalist people that I know online use these and make tinctures with them. So I'm going to do that with this one, because apparently they contain some of the same medicinal, if not the same medicinal benefits as reishi. So an exciting thing to be learning about and experiment with. I'm going to have a hard time cutting it up though to process it, because it's literally as hard as wood. Ooh, that's setting off that weird reflex in my knee. I just want to add quickly that whilst a source may say that a mushroom is medicinal, this doesn't mean that those medicinal properties are easily and readily available to humans. So tougher fungi like polypores and brackets need more thorough processing, such as a strong alcohol soak, in order to break down the cell walls and reach the compounds. And obviously medicinal mushrooms are still being researched. Oh my god, that is huge. It's nice and soft as well still, so this is a good one to harvest actually. Jesus, it's so thick. Probably not demonstrating very good knife safety here. Wow, get another nice bit. Ooh. She's thick. Now this is going to last me a long time, so I don't really need to harvest any more this season, I don't think. Something caught my eye as I was walking back to the car. You see that in there? So that is definitely a wood blewit. You can see the pretty mycelium on the leaf litter there. This one's a bit too gross for my liking. And it's got that beautiful smell, that perfumey, floral, delicious smell. But I'm going to leave this behind for someone else or something else to eat. So yeah, not a load of edibles out right now. Some oysters popping out where it's quite moist in areas, and there's still some hedgehogs around. The blewits are only just starting to come out because it's only just got cold around here. So yeah, that's about it at the moment. And I've not yet found a cauliflower fungus because I haven't really been making much effort to look for one. I haven't spent a lot of time in the areas with the pine trees, so I'll try and remember to do that on my next walk, and hopefully we'll find one if it's not too late.